Welcome to Chem323 Organic Chemistry Lab. My name is Dr. Andrew Stranjord and I will be the instructor for this course. I will be making a series of videos for each experiment. Welcome to class. This is a page out of my lab notebook. I will be using this page to write down observations and record data. Notice I have already written down the process steps so that I can follow these in lab. This is the lab setup as for the reaction in the hood. As you can see from here, it's a very simple setup. It's literally a little reaction vessel hooked to a ring stand. Next, I weighed out approximately 0.400 grams of sodium benzoate. My actual weight is 0.4303 grams. And I recorded this value in my laboratory notebook. I'm now going to transfer the sodium benzoate over to the reaction vessel. I've now measured out 3 milliliters of water and I'm going to add that to the reaction vessel. I'm now going to stir this until all of the sodium benzoate dissolves. I'm now going to add my 3 molar HCl, starting off with 0.8 milliliters, and then dropwise until the pH is less than 2. I've transferred my HCl to a secondary container, and now I'm going to suck up approximately 1 milliliter. That's based on that line that I've drawn on the pipette. I'm then going to dispense some of that, not quite all of it, into the reaction vessel and observe the changes that are happening. There's a white solid that's appearing. I'm now going to stop and I'm going to stir that reaction again. So a white precipitate formed. And I write that observation down in my lab notebook. I'm now going to test the pH by putting a small drop from the top of it onto my pH paper. And notice here, if I compare that to the scale here, I'm still in the pH of about 5. So I need to add more acid to bring the pH down to 2. So I'm going to now add 4 more drops. I'm then going to stir up my reaction vessel again to mix all the acid now in uniformly. I'm now going to go down and I'm going to test the pH again on a new spot. and it's still pretty high pH, so I need to add more acid. And this time I'm going to add 5 drops. I'm going to stir up the contents of my reaction vessel again to get that acid mixed in uniformly. I'm now going to test it on the pH paper again. And it still is not acidic. I need to add more. So this time, I think I'm going to add maybe 6 drops. Stir up the reaction vessel. Test my pH. And it's starting to get higher pH. So now I'm somewhere around between 2 and 3. I will now add just a couple more drops here to bring down the pH a little bit more. Stir that up. Test the pH one more time. And you can see it's gone back up to higher pH after mixing. So I'm going to add some more acid. I'm going to go ahead and add 5 more drops this time. And test the pH. This time I'm definitely acidic because I can see that red based on looking at the scale. I've now added some ice water bath underneath the reaction vessel to help chill it further. The goal here is to cool it so I can help precipitate out more of my product, the benzoic acid. Typically, organic compounds are less soluble at colder temperatures. So we're going to wait about 5 minutes. Now that my solution is chilled, I'm going to take it over to my vacuum filtration apparatus and actually separate the solid from the liquid. This is the experimental setup for doing vacuum filtration. Here is my sidearm flask. Here is my Hirsch funnel. I'm going to place a piece of filter paper down in the Hirsch funnel. I'm now going to turn on the vacuum so that I have vacuum going out through the hose. I have pre-chilled some water, and so I'm going to now wet that filter paper a little bit and seal it against the bottom of the flask. And now I'll go get my benzoic acid and filter it. And now I'll add the contents of my reaction vessel. Notice there's still material left on the stirring rod and also in the reaction vessel, so I'm going to take some of my cold water and sort of rinse that out. Take some more cold water. Rinse that out. And I'll probably do one more transfer here to try to rinse out as much material as I can out of the reaction vessel. And then pour it down. Okay. I'm now going to wait about 5 minutes so the vacuum can suck some air through our benzoic acid and dry it more. Before I transfer my benzoic acid over to a watch glass, I need to pre-weigh that watch glass first. And record that value in my lab notebook. I'm now going to turn off the vacuum, and I'm going to transfer the solid from my filter funnel over to the watch glass, and it's been pre-weighed, so I've pre-weighed the watch glass. I'm now going to scrape my benzoic acid onto the watch glass. I'm also going to have to scrape off some of the filter paper because there's benzoic acid on it. Now I'll weigh my watch glass with the benzoic acid on it. And again, writing down the value for this weight in our lab notebook. I'm now going to place my sample on the watch glass at an oven that's set to 90 degrees Celsius to help drive off some of the water. Here is our benzoic acid on a watch glass inside that oven. I will leave the sample in the oven for 5 minutes, remove it, and then weigh it again. This will tell us if there's any mass that is being lost due to water evaporation. This is a measurement after 5 minutes in the oven. This is a measurement after 10 minutes in the oven. This is a measurement after 15 minutes in the drying oven. This is our measurement after 20 minutes in the drying oven. Notice that the mass has not changed much from our last measurement, so we will not put it back in the drying oven. We will call this our final mass. Again, we've recorded this information as we took it in our lab notebooks, and here are the values. I'm now going to transfer my dried benzoic acid over to a vial. I'm going to use some weighing paper to do that to help in the transfer. So I'm going to easily scrape all that material onto my weighing paper. And then I will carefully transfer that over to my vial. And then sealing it up. So that's it. We've now synthesized benzoic acid. we still have a few things to do. We still need to get rid of some wastes. So this waste here in our filter flask now is acidic, so we need to dispose of that. In our aqueous acid vessel. So I'm going to pour that in there, and then I'm going to use some DI water to rinse that out. So I'll use a little DI water here. And that will be taken to the stock room where it'll be disposed of properly. I also have some filter paper that has benzoic acid on it, so I need to dispose of that also. That will also be taken to the stock room where it will be disposed of properly. And eventually, I will take my synthesized benzoic acid and actually dispose of it in a waste container also. But I'm going to do that at a later time because I want people to see my benzoic acid, and I have to label my vial first. And finally, I'm going to sign and date the last page in my notebook. That concludes experiment number 1. Welcome to class again.